Right now I am standing on the edge of a granite cliff in Montauk. It is 11:42 p.m. The air has a weather report of 48-degree Atlantic sleet and the smell of dead kelp. The humidity is 82%. I am holding a 50 milliliters crystal bottle of Eterna, the fragrance that is supposed to save the house of Thornvane. The bottle cost $140 to manufacture. The lead glass was hand-cut in a factory in Poland. My husband, Marcus, is standing 4 feet behind me. He is wearing a $3,500 charcoal wool overcoat with silk lining. On his hip, a Motorola StarTAC pager is vibrating. The green light flashes in the dark like the eye of a deep-sea predator. He looks at me with a pulse rate of exactly 62 beats per minute. He doesn't look angry. He looks like a man who is checking the expiration date on a carton of milk. He says, "Elena, you were a perfect engine. But the 90s are over. The new century needs a face that is soft, untouched, and effortlessly chic. You smell like industrial solvents and labor. You're a whetstone, Elena. Useful for sharpening the blade, but no one wants to display a whetstone on their vanity. Sophie is the flower. You are just the dirt. It's not an insult. It's just your nature as a girl who started with nothing. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one who planted the rose, or the one who was waiting to cut it?" The year was 1992. I had just returned from the spice fields of Grasse, France. I had $300 in a leather wallet and a maxed-out credit card. I signed a lease for a 600-square-foot basement in Queens for $1,200 a month. The ceiling leaked when the neighbors took a shower. Marcus was with me then. Marcus had the old money jawline and a family name that was currently worth less than a subway token. Marcus had the $12,000 custom-tailored suits that I paid for by working 16-hour shifts at a chemical plant. I had hands that were permanently stained yellow from picking jasmine petals. My fingernails were bitten down to the quick. He got the credit for my first major scent, Awakening. He got the 100-pound cardstock business cards that said Managing Director. He got the invitations to the gala events at the Met where he sipped $400 a glass brandy. I got a used $8,000 copper alembic still with a dent in the condenser. I got a spiral-bound notebook with 422 pages of molecular structures. Every line of data was written with a 15-cent bit pen in a 24-hour diner, fueled by 75-cent bottomless coffee. That was my soul. That was the skeleton of the empire I was building. I gave it to Marcus, because he was my husband, the man I thought was my anchor. He didn't even look at the notebook before putting it in his mahogany briefcase. He spoke like he was reading the weather report for a Tuesday morning in January. He said, "Elena, we're going to rebrand. Sophie will be the face of Thornvane. The press kits are already printed. You can retire to the countryside. I've written you a check for $50,000. It's enough for a small flower shop in New Jersey. Don't be a stable piece of furniture, Elena. Don't be the person who holds a grudge over a desk." Then he pushed me. My heels caught on the wet granite. My head hit the rocks at a velocity of 32 feet per second. The Eterna bottle shattered against the stone. In my final second, I didn't smell roses. I smelled the scent of rotting damask petals and the ozone of a coming storm. But the light didn't fade. It flickered. I blinked. The smell of the Atlantic sleet was gone. The air was a weather report of 72 degrees, and the scent of damp wood and industrial floor wax. I am sitting at a paper-cluttered desk. A heavy beige computer monitor is humming in front of me. The clock on the wall says 2:14 p.m. The calendar says April 12, 1995. I am back in the Queen's basement. My hands are rough, my fingernails are yellow. Marcus is knocking on the door. He is 28 years old. He is wearing a cheap polyester tie and a desperate expression. He is here to ask me for $42,000 to pay off his gambling debts to a bookie in Brooklyn. I reached into my pocket. I found a crumpled $5 bill. I found a small glass vial of Awakening prototype, and I found the marriage contract I was supposed to sign tomorrow. The one that would give him 50% of everything I'd built. He doesn't know. My mind isn't full of 422 pages of data. It is full of 10 years of market crashes, perfume failures, and the exact dates of the global sandalwood shortage of 1997. And I know exactly what Sophie was doing in 1995. She wasn't a Parisian socialite. She was a waitress at a strip club in Atlantic City. The show is about to start. The first 24 hours of my second life were a weather report of clinical precision. The temperature in the Queen's basement was 64 degrees. The pipes in the wall were dripping at exactly 42 beats per minute. Marcus was sitting on the edge of my $85 secondhand mattress. He was holding a cup of my 75-cent coffee. His hands were shaking. He said, "Elena, if I don't pay them by Friday, they'll break my hands. And I'm the one who has to shake hands with the investors. You have the savings. Think of it as a family investment. Once Awakening launches, we'll buy that house in the Hamptons. I'll buy you a Rolex. Just give me the access to the account. Subscribe. Tell me, when was the last time you were asked to pay for the rope that would eventually hang you? In my first life, I gave him the $42,000. I worked 3 jobs. I sold my blood. I sold my alembic still. I became the soil for his flower. Marcus got the Rolex. Marcus got the Hamptons house. I got the granite cliff. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I looked at the beige monitor of my IBM computer. I spoke with the weather report coldness of a woman who has already felt her heart stop. I said, I don't have the $42,000 in cash, Marcus, but I have the formula for Awakening. We can sell the pre-orders to the department stores. Sign this limited liability partnership first. It says that the IP belongs to me, but you get the management fee. It's for the good of the family name. I handed him a document I had spent the last 6 hours drafting on a typewriter. It was printed on 20-pound bond paper. It was a legal cage wrapped in a family investment ribbon. Marcus didn't read it. He didn't know how to read a balance sheet, let alone a contract. He saw the word management fee, and his eyes lit up with a pulse rate of 110. He signed. He used a 50-cent plastic pen. While he was celebrating with a $2 beer, I was changing the formula. In the original 95 Awakening, I used a high-purity iris root extract. It was the soul of the perfume. This time, I replaced the iris with a synthetic molecule, beta-aldehyde 9. In the bottle, it smells identical. But beta-aldehyde 9 has a specific property. It is highly reactive to the specific chemical treatments used in high-end 90s luxury silk. The kind of silk Marcus would eventually buy for Sophie. Once the perfume touches that silk, it undergoes an irreversible chemical reaction. It turns a bright neon orange, and it begins to smell like a crematorium. I didn't just sabotage the scent. I started the shadow audit. I used my pager to send 12 messages to the 240 suppliers I would eventually know by heart. I knew that by 1997 the harvest of Mysore Sandalwood would fail. I knew that the price would jump from 80 bars a kilo to 2,400. I spent my $42K savings not on Marcus's debt, but on buying up the 97 futures. I bought the silence. I bought the flow. Marcus came back to the desk. He tried to put his hand on my shoulder. The same hand that would push me off a cliff in 1999. He said, "You're a stable gear, Elena. Stable as a piece of old furniture. I'm glad I have you to handle the dirty work while I build the vision." That was the microaggression he used for 10 years. He thought I was the floor. He didn't realize that the floor was currently opening beneath him. June 15th, 1995. The Grand Ballroom of the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan. The air is a weather report of 68.2 degrees, and the scent of expensive cigars, and Red by Giorgio Beverly Hills. The humidity is kept at exactly 40% to protect the silk wall hangings and the gold leaf molding. I am standing near the service entrance next to a stack of industrial-sized dish racks. I am wearing a $45 black dress I bought at a clearance sale at Lohman's. The fabric is a polyester blend that scratches my neck. My hands are hidden behind my back. The skin is raw from a chemical spill I had yesterday in the basement. The pH of the jasmine extract was 4.2. It ate through my 5-cent latex gloves in 12 seconds. Marcus is at the center of the room. He is wearing a $4,500 tuxedo made of superfine Italian wool. I know the price because I signed the credit card slip for the deposit. He is holding a crystal flute of 1985 Dom Perignon. Price: $280 per bottle. He is standing next to Sophie. Sophie is 22. She is wearing a $12,000 vintage silk gown. The silk was sourced from a mill in Lyon that closed in 1964. She looks like a Parisian vision, a curated piece of art for the investors to admire. Marcus hasn't introduced me to anyone. He hasn't even looked toward the service entrance. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one in the ballroom or the one cleaning the crystal? 2 hours ago, Marcus found me in the hotel's prep kitchen. I was checking the temperature of the 5 milliliter sample vials of Awakening. The vials were stored at 15 degrees Celsius. Marcus leaned against the stainless steel table. He didn't look at the clinical data I had compiled on the sense's stability. He looked at the yellow stains on my fingernails. He said, "Elena, your eyes are bloodshot, and you smell like a laboratory. Sophie is going to take the stage tonight. The press needs an icon of grace, not a girl who looks like she just crawled out of a refinery. Go to the back. Make sure the staff distributes the vials at exactly 9:30 p.m. You have the stability, Elena. You're the engine room, but no one invites the engine to the dinner table. It's not an insult. It's just your nature as a laborer." The golden child contrast was absolute. Sophie got the $35,000 diamond necklace from Tiffany's. Sophie got the front row seat next to the CEO of Saks Fifth Avenue. Sophie got the inspiration credit in the press release. I got the 12-hour shift. I got the 85-degree kitchen heat. I got the $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich I ate standing up next to a trash can. I looked at Sophie through the crack in the door. She was laughing. She was spraying Awakening onto her silk sleeves. The mist was fine. The alcohol content was 82%. She didn't know that I had spent the last 48 hours modifying the formula in the special batch vials. I had replaced the natural iris pallida with a synthetic variant I synthesized in my queen's basement, beta-aldehyde 9. In the bottle, it smells like a dream. But beta-aldehyde 9 reacts with the specific metallic dyes used in mid-90s vintage silk. The reaction is called the Oxidative Bloom. It triggers exactly 42 minutes after exposure to oxygen and body heat. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:25 p.m. The weather report for the Pierre Hotel. A high-pressure system of vanity, followed by a sudden, permanent storm. Marcus walked to the podium. He tapped his glass with a silver spoon. The sound was 440 hertz. "Tonight," he said, his voice smooth as silk, "we unveil the future of Thorn Vein. Awakening is the soul of my wife-to-be, Sophie. It is a scent that captures the purity of the modern woman." I hit the button on my Motorola pager, a signal to my invisible artisans in the crowd. They began handing out the modified vials. The investors took them. The socialites took them. They sprayed. I counted the seconds. 420 seconds. The reaction started on Sophie's left sleeve. A small neon orange dot appeared. It looked like a drop of rust. Then it began to spread. The chemical reaction released a byproduct, hydrogen sulfide. The scent of Awakening vanished. It was replaced by the scent of a crematorium. The CEO of Saks Fifth Avenue recoiled. Sophie looked at her arm. The $12,000 silk was dissolving. The orange stain was eating the fabric at a rate of 1.2 millimeters per second. The aura was melting. The golden child was turning into a warning sign. Marcus froze. He looked at me through the door. I didn't move. I spoke to myself in the weather report tone. Visibility 0. The engine has just pulled the plug. The years 1995 to 1998 were a montage of cold faxes and the smell of sulfur. While Marcus was dealing with the crematorium scandal, I was building the Shadow Vault. I didn't try to save his reputation. I let him drown in the PR nightmare of the orange disaster. I told him I was working on a fix. The fix was actually the weapon. 25 years old. I am living in the Queen's basement. The rent is $1,200 a month. I am working 110-hour weeks. I am drinking 75-cent bottomless coffee in a diner at 3 a.m. I am using a beige IBM computer with a 14.4K modem. I am mapping the global supply chain of Mysore Sandalwood. Marcus got the $400,000 Ferrari 355. He bought it on a high-interest margin loan in 1996. He got the penthouse in Soho with the $15,000 a month mortgage. He got the Man of the Year nomination from an industry magazine. I got a chronic cough from the chemical fumes. I got a $12 hoodie from a thrift store that I wore for 3 winters. I got a ledger book with 422 pages of debt signatures. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, have you ever been the one who built the bridge while the other person stood on it and called it their island? The Mysore Sandalwood market of 1997 was my masterpiece. I knew the harvest would fail. I had the satellite data I bought from a disgraced meteorologist for $2,000. I knew the monsoons would be 42% heavier than normal. The sandalwood trees would rot. I spent every cent of my savings, and the management fees Marcus didn't know I was skimming, on futures. I bought the rights to 14,000 kilos of sandalwood at $80 per kilo. By November 1997, the price hit $2,400. Thornvane's production costs exploded. The profit margin went from 18% to negative 42%. Marcus called me on my StarTAC pager. The message was, urgent. Call now. I was sitting in my basement, looking at a fax from my bank in Zurich. The balance in the Alchemist of Ash account was $12 million. I called him back from a payphone. The wind was a weather report of 45 degrees and the smell of wet asphalt. "Elena! We're ruined!" Marcus screamed. "The suppliers won't ship. They say the stock is gone. I need $5 million to cover the Saks order. Give me the company reserves." I spoke with the weather report coldness. "The reserves are gone, Marcus. You spent them on Sophie's influence campaign in Paris. But I can help you. My external partners will offer a loan. 12% interest? The collateral is your remaining 80% equity. It's for the good of the family name." He didn't hesitate. He signed the fax at 11:14 p.m. He thought he was being saved by a miracle. He didn't realize he was being liquidated by a ghost. 1998 was the year of the micro-violence of the office. Marcus moved my desk to the mailroom. He said, "It's more efficient, Elena. You're the technical heart. Hearts belong in the center of the body, not the head. I'll stay in the corner office to handle the vision. You just make sure the faxes keep coming." I sat in the mailroom. The air was a weather report of 62 degrees and the sound of the postage meter. I watched Marcus sign for a $50,000 diamond necklace for Sophie. I watched him sign for a $12,000 flight to the Maldives. Every signature was a record of his debt to me. Every signature was a tooth in the gear of his destruction. I spent 1,000 nights checking the default trigger. I didn't want to just bankrupt him. I wanted to own the molecules of his existence. I wanted him to look at the sky and realize I owned the air. October 12, 1999, the cliff in Montauk. The time is exactly 11:41 p.m. The Atlantic sleet is hitting the rocks at a velocity of 12 miles per hour. The humidity is 88%. Marcus is standing 4 feet away. He looks at me. He thinks this is the end of his problem. He thinks that if I fall, the debt vanishes. He thinks that dead women don't hold faxes. He steps forward. The pulse in his neck is 130 beats per minute. You were stable furniture, Elena, he whispers. But furniture is heavy to move. I'm tired of carrying you. I pull out my Motorola StarTAC. I don't call the police. I hit the broadcast button on my pre-recorded fax sequence. At that exact second, 240 faxes began to print in the offices of every major department store in the world. The faxes contained the forensic audit of the crematorium scandal. The faxes contained the management fee agreements. The faxes contained the 1995 partnership contract that proved I owned 100% of the IP. Marcus's pager started vibrating. The green light was a weather report of a digital seizure. He looked at the screen. The message was from his lawyer. All assets frozen. Liquidation imminent. Where are you? I spoke with the coldness of a woman who has already seen her own funeral. The wind is blowing from the north, and the north remembers. He was fast, but he was wearing $1,200 shoes with leather soles. They had no traction on the wet granite. I didn't move. I stood still. I am a stable piece of furniture, and I have a low center of gravity. He slipped. His hand caught my fleece jacket. He looked into my eyes. He saw the technical assistant. He saw the engine. He saw the gardener. And then he saw the owner. "Elena, please!" he gasped. His pulse was now erratic. I looked at his hand on my sleeve. I didn't pull him up. I just stated a fact, like I was reading the nutritional label on a box of cereal. The debt is now past due, Marcus, and the collateral is your life. I loosened my jacket. He fell. There was no scream. Only the sound of the Atlantic waves hitting the rocks. The velocity of his fall was 32 feet per second squared. The impact was absolute. I walked to my black Volvo. The heater was set to 72 degrees. I pulled out a Ziploc bag from the glove box. Inside was the $50,000 check Marcus had written me in my first life. The one for the small flower shop. I walked to the edge of the cliff one last time. I let the wind take it. The paper was a white speck against the black ocean. Then it was gone. I drove toward the city. The 90s were over. The 21st century was beginning. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't smell roses. I didn't smell sulfur. I didn't smell ashes. I smelled the rain. And the rain was clean. I am Elena Thorne. I am the alchemist of the void. And I am finally, truly fired. The room is exactly 12 feet by 12 feet. The air is a weather report of 62 degrees and the scent of floor wax and stale menthol cigarettes. The light is a single fluorescent tube that hums at 60 hertz. I am sitting in a metal chair that cost $18 at a government surplus auction in 1992. My hands are folded on the laminate table. The detective, a man named Russo, is looking at me. He is wearing a suit that smells of cheap polyester and sweat. He is holding a clipboard with 42 pages of preliminary evidence. He says, "Mrs. Vane, the witness says she saw you and your husband at the cliff. She says she saw him fall. She says you didn't move. She says you stood there like a piece of furniture while he went over the edge. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from." "Are you the one asking the questions, or the one with the answers hidden in your pocket?" I didn't blink. I looked at the $2 cup of lukewarm precinct coffee on the table. I spoke with the weather report coldness of a woman who has already accounted for every variable. I said, "Detective, the humidity was 88%. The granite was wet. Marcus was wearing $1,200 shoes with zero traction. The physics of the fall are recorded in the velocity of the Atlantic wind, 14 miles per hour. He didn't fall because I stood still. He fell because he forgot that gravity doesn't care about his vision. I was the one who called 911. The call lasted 112 seconds. Check the logs. The golden child contrast of the interrogation. Marcus got the front page headline, "The Visionary Falls." Marcus got the sympathetic profile in the New York Post. Marcus got the $15,000 mahogany casket. I got the 4-hour interrogation. I got the polygraph that measured my pulse at a steady 62 beats per minute. I got the suspicious looks from the socialites who thought I was too calm for a grieving widow. I wasn't grieving. I was auditing the silence. I spent the next 3 days providing the bank statements to the police. I showed them the $42 million in debt Marcus had accrued. I showed them the faxes from the external partners at the Alchemist of Ash. I proved that Marcus had a $5 million reason to want me dead. I proved that his fall was a statistical inevitability of his own desperation. Detective Russo closed the folder at 4 p.m. on Friday. The air was a weather report of 55 degrees and the smell of rain. He said, "The case is being ruled an accident, Mrs. Vane. But you're a cold one. You talk about your husband like you're reading a shipping manifest." I stood up. I straightened my $45 black dress. I said, "A manifest is the only thing that tells you exactly what is missing, detective. And right now, I am the only thing that is left." I walked out of the precinct. I didn't cry. I walked to a payphone and sent a page to the 240 suppliers. The message was one word: resume. November 15th, 1999. The executive suite of Thorn Vane on 5th Avenue. The air is a weather report of 68 degrees and the smell of industrial-strength bleach. I hired a team of professional cleaners to scrub the floors for 48 hours. I wanted the scent of Marcus's cologne, at $400 a bottle musk, erased from the ventilation system. I am standing at the head of the $450,000 mahogany table. The board of directors is sitting in front of me. There are 12 of them. Each one is wearing a suit that costs more than my first lab. They're looking at me like I'm a technical glitch that they need to optimize away. One of them, a man named Sterling, spoke up. He was 60. He had a face like a dried-out sponge. He said, "But the brand is built on the vision of Marcus's. With him gone and Sophie in recovery, the investors are nervous. We've decided to bring in a new CEO from a luxury conglomerate in Paris. You'll remain as the head of research. You'll have a nice lab in New Jersey. Think of it as a promotion. You're the engine, Elena. But engines belong under the hood, not in the driver's seat. The micro-violence of the corporate boardroom. They think I'm a stable piece of furniture. They think I am a technical contribution. They think they can move me to New Jersey and I'll be happy with a new centrifuge." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I pulled out a Ziploc bag from my briefcase. Inside was a 1.44 megabytes floppy disk. Price? 50 cents. I inserted it into the IBM laptop on the table. The screen flickered to life. I showed them the management fee ledger. I said, "Sterling, you mentioned the brand. But the brand doesn't own the formula for awakening. The brand doesn't own the patents for the 42 synthetic molecules we use. My shell company, the Alchemist of Ash, owns the IP. And Thornvane hasn't paid its licensing fees in 24 months. The total debt is $82 million. You have 180 seconds to decide if you want to keep the driver's seat or if you want to keep the engine." The silence in the room was 12.4 seconds long. I could hear the hum of the $1.2 million HVAC system. I looked at my watch. The time was exactly 10:14 a.m. Sterling's face turned the color of unripened lime. He looked at the ledger. He looked at the signatures Marcus had faxed me in 1997. He realized that the face of the company was a mask, and the engine was the one who owned the skin. By 2 p.m. I was the CEO. I didn't make a speech. I didn't record a vlog. I sat at the mahogany table and ate a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich. I looked at the weather report on the monitor. Clear skies. Visibility. Forever. December 19th, 1999. I'm sitting in a windowless room in a private clinic in upstate New York. The air is a weather report of 72 degrees and the scent of medicinal lavender and floor wax. Sophie is sitting on the edge of a bed that costs $1,200 a night. She's wearing a gray sweatshirt I bought for her at a discount store. The $12,000 silk gown is in a trash can in Manhattan. The $35,000 diamond necklace was seized by the bank. She looks at me. Her eyes are bloodshot. Her skin is pale. She says, "You planned it, didn't you? The orange stain, the sandalwood shortage." "You're a monster, Elena. You're the one who turned me into a joke." Subscribe. Tell me, is the truth a joke when it's told by the person you tried to erase? I looked at her fingernails. They were bitten down to the quick. I spoke with the weather report coldness of a woman who has already moved on. I said, "I didn't turn you into anything, Sophie. I just let the chemical reaction finish. You were the one who decided to be the aura of a lie. An aura is just light-hitting smoke. And eventually, the smoke clears." The golden child contrast of the clinic. Sophie got the $500,000 self-discovery fund from Marcus. Sophie got the front row seats at the Paris Fashion Week. Sophie got the icon title. Now she has the $12 sweatshirt. Now she has the 24-hour observation. Now she has the truth about her Atlantic City years, recorded in a Ziploc bag. I didn't come to gloat. I came to audit the debt. I handed her a document, a non-disclosure and release agreement. I offered her $50,000 in cash, the same amount Marcus had offered me for my flower shop. I said, "Sign this, and the police never hear about the crematorium scandal evidence I found in your jewelry box. Sign this, and you go back to the suburbs. Refuse, and you become the technical heart of a fraud investigation." Sophie didn't hesitate. She signed the paper with a 50-cent plastic pen. The ink was black. The result was absolute. The last ghost of Marcus Vane was officially deleted. I walked out of the clinic. The snow was falling at a rate of 1.2 inches per hour. The temperature was 28 degrees. I felt the weight of the air leaving my lungs. I was no longer the widow. I was the alchemist. The world entered the new millennium. The air was a weather report of high-frequency electricity and the smell of new circuit boards. While the golden children of the dot-com boom were buying $20 million penthouses, I was building the global CentNet, 26 years old. I am the CEO of Thorn Global. I am working 120-hour weeks. I am drinking $2 espresso in a paper cup. I am using a high-speed T1 line to coordinate with 42 different manufacturing plants. The montage of the new century. January 2000. I liquidated the Ferrari 355 and the Soho penthouse. I moved the headquarters to a 50,000-square-foot warehouse in Long Island City. The walls were painted industrial white. March 2001. I launched Ash and Bone, a minimalist fragrance that cost $18 to manufacture and sold for $250. The profit margin was 92.8%. June 2002. Thorn Global hit $500 million in annual revenue. I didn't buy a $35,000 gown. I bought a 500-year-old stone villa in Tuscany. The walls were made of local granite. The air was a weather report of rosemary and silence. I didn't hire a PR firm. I didn't go to the Met Gala. I stayed in my lab. I ground my own pigments. I verify my own molecular structures. Marcus got the legacy profile in the New York Times in 2002. They called him the fallen prophet of luxury. They called me the silent successor. They didn't know that the successor was the one who had pulled the plug on the prophet. I sat on the terrace of my villa in Tuscany. The sun was hitting the stone at exactly 45 degrees. The temperature was 74 degrees. I was drinking a glass of $2 tap water. I looked at the 422-page notebook on my lap. Every line was now a reality. Every debt was now paid. I wasn't a stable gear anymore. I was the clock. September 12, 2004. The 5-year anniversary of the cliff. I am standing on the terrace of the Thorn Global headquarters. The wind is 5 miles per hour. The humidity is 40%. Visibility, infinite. I am holding a $2 instant coffee cup from a Family Mart in Shanghai. It is a relic of the time I spent building the Asian supply chain. If you've watched all 10 parts of The Scent of Ashes, understand the final lesson of the alchemist. The world will always try to tell you that you are furniture. They will try to tell you that the aura is more important than the atom. Let them, because when the floor finally moves, the only person left standing is the one who built the floor. Marcus Vane is a footnote in a business textbook. Sophie is a receptionist at a dental clinic in Ohio. She earns $14.50 an hour. She wears a gray uniform. She doesn't remember the scent of damask roses. I reach into my pocket. I find a Ziploc bag with a $12 set of synthetic brushes from 1992. The bristles are worn. The wood is stained with yellow jasmine. I walk to the incinerator in the corner of the lab. I throw them into the flames. The sound of the wood cracking is the only symphony I need. My weather report. No signal required. Pulse. 60 beats. I am Elena Thorne. I am no longer the ghost. I am the light. And I am finally truly silent. February 12th, 2005. The air in the basement of the New York Municipal Archive is a weather report of 64.2 degrees, and the scent of decomposing cellulose and high-acid paper. The humidity is kept at exactly 32% to prevent the municipal records of the 1970s from turning into dust. I am standing in aisle 42, Section B. I am wearing a $3,500 charcoal wool overcoat and $15 surgical-grade latex gloves. I am looking at a microfilm reel labeled Vane Industrial 1974. If you're still watching, subscribe. Tell me, when you dig up the past, are you looking for a treasure or are you looking for the burial site? 3 weeks ago, I received a letter. It was sent to the Thorne Global headquarters in Long Island City. The envelope was a standard number 10 white paper, bought for 5 cents at a drugstore. Inside was a Polaroid photo of my father-in-law, Arthur Vane. He was standing in front of a collapsed construction site in Queens. The date on the bottom was July 14th, 1974. On the back, a message was written in the same Golden Child cursive Marcus used. The foundation was always hollow, Elena. You didn't destroy the Vane name. You just revealed the cracks that were already there. I'm starting Vane Resurrection. I have an investor. He says your ash and bone formula is a violation of a 30-year-old family patent. See you in the courtroom. The investor was a man named Julian St. Clair, a man who specializes in buying the dead of fallen empires to sell the scrap metal of their reputations. They think they found the original sin of my empire. They think they can prove I stole the technology from Marcus's father. In 1974, Arthur Vane wasn't a prophet of luxury. He was a site foreman for a concrete company in Brooklyn. I found the record of the Queens disaster. The foreman was cleared of all charges because he provided a signed safety report that proved the steel was faulty. But the signature on that report wasn't the steel inspector's. It was a forgery. I recognized the V in the signature. It was the same V Marcus used when he signed my $50,000 exit check in 1999. This is the Golden Child logic across 2 generations. The father built his career on a forged safety report. The son built his empire on a stolen perfume formula. And now they wanted to sue me for violating a legacy of theft. I didn't burn the microfilm. I didn't call my lawyers. I made a high-resolution digital scan. I sent it to the families of the 3 workers who died in 1974. I included a $500,000 legacy reparation from the Thorne Global Community Fund. The weather report for Arthur Vane's resurrection. March 15th, 2005. The weather report for Manhattan. Sleet. Wind chill, -5. The humidity is 92%. Sophie is standing inside a pawn shop on 8th Avenue. She is wearing her last $4,500 Chanel suit from the 1995 engagement party. It is stained with the gray silt of the New York subway. The left sleeve has a neon orange dot the size of a dime, the permanent mark of my beta-aldehyde 9. She is holding a $185,000 Patek Philippe watch, the one Marcus bought for her with the Sandalwood profits in 1997. The pawnbroker is a man with a $15 Casio and a mind like a forensic ledger. He looks at the watch through a 10x magnifying loupe. The movement is 18K gold, he says. His voice is a weather report of flat indifference. But the serial number has been flagged in a corporate bankruptcy liquidation. This watch technically belongs to the Alchemist of Ash Trust. I can only give you $500 for the gold weight of the casing. The exact price of the Starbucks gift card Marcus gave me as a bonus in 1996. The exact price of the self-discovery fund Sophie used for a single lunch in Paris. Sophie didn't argue. She took the $500 bills with trembling fingers. She walked to a grocery store on the corner. She bought a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich and a $2 bottle of water. She ate it in the dark of a Port Authority bus station. If you're still listening, subscribe. Tell me, does the golden child still taste like gold when the money is gone? I watched her through the security feed of the bus station. I was sitting in my 64th floor office at the Thorn building. The air was a perfect 72 degrees. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was looking for the biological bottom. I wanted to know if a person built on an aura can survive when the light is turned off. Sophie finished her sandwich. She threw the wrapper into a galvanized steel trash can. She didn't cry. She pulled out a 15-cent bike pen from her bag. She started drawing on the back of a bus schedule. She wasn't drawing a vision of a new perfume. She was drawing a floor plan for a 400-square-foot studio with a solid foundation. I realized then that Sophie had finally become a worker. And as a worker, she was no longer useful to Arthur Vane. I reached into my pocket and found my Motorola pager. I sent a message to my private investigator. The message was, watch the father, ignore the May 2005. I am back in the Queen's basement building. But I'm not in the basement. I'm on the 13-5 floor, a mezzanine level I discovered during the 2004 structural audit. It is a space between the primary steel beams where Arthur Vane kept the Blackwood files. The air is a weather report of 58 degrees, and the sound of the high-speed cooling fans. The smell is stagnant ozone. I found a color-coded tabbed binder in a fireproof safe. Inside was the biological debt of the Vane family. 1985, Arthur Vane's medical records. He didn't have a heart condition that required him to retire and hand the company to Marcus. He had a $120,000 cosmetic enhancement fund that he used to reconstruct his jawline to look more aristocratic. He paid for it by diverting the employee pension fund of the concrete company. 1992, Marcus's college tuition. It wasn't paid for by an academic scholarship. It was paid for by a $150,000 consulting fee Arthur charged to a client who didn't exist. This is the microaggression of the patriarch. He didn't just favor his son. Tabataraho dai benchoega huanyen de ronji. He made Marcus incapable of reality, so that Arthur could be the only person who knew the truth. Marcus wasn't the driver. He was a mannequin Arthur had dressed in a $12,000 suit. I realized that Marcus had pushed me off that cliff in 1999 because he was terrified. He was terrified that if I stayed alive, I would eventually find the 13.5 floor. He was terrified that the stable furniture would eventually look at the ceiling. I didn't leak the files to the press. I sent them to Julian Saint, Claire's attorney. I included a note written with a 50-cent plastic pen, but here is the face you are investing in. The foundation isn't just hollow. It's toxic. The interest on the 1974 debt is now $42 million. A weather report for your partnership. Absolute zero. July 4th, 2005. Arthur Vane invited me to a reconciliation picnic at his estate in Gostad. The air was a weather report of 68 degrees and the scent of expensive pine and alpine grass. The humidity was 40%. Arthur was sitting in a $12,000 leather chair on the terrace. He was wearing a white linen suit. He looked like a man who had never seen a 4 UN Family Mart coffee in his life. "Elena," he said. His voice was a weather report of forced warmth and the smell of high-end gin. "We're a family again. Marcus is gone. Sophie is recovering. The vain name needs a successor who understands the old ways. Release the 80% equity. I'll make you the global curator. You can stay in the lab. You can stay in the basement. Just let me handle the aura. Don't be the daughter who holds the debt. Unattractive. Stable. Basement." The microaggressions were a perfect echo of Marcus. I looked at the Alps. The peaks were covered in snow that was 400 years old. I said, "The aura is a gas, Arthur. It expands to fill the room, but it has no mass. In 1974, you traded the lives of 3 men for a jawline. In 1999, your son traded my life for a vision. Why would I want to join a family that values the paint more than the wall?" I could hear the ice melting in his glass. Arthur looked at me. The weather report in his eyes changed from sun to blizzard. "You are a monster, Elena. A cold, technical monster. You are the soil that refuses to let the flower grow." I stood up. I was wearing a $12 hoodie I had kept from 1992. I said, "The soil doesn't refuse the flower, Arthur. It just stops feeding the weeds." The $42 million reparation check was cashed this morning. The Vane estate is officially insolvent. You can stay for 10 minutes to collect your linen suits. After that, the sheriff will be here to chain the door. I walked away. The weather was clear. Visibility, infinite. September 12, 2005, the 6-year anniversary of the cliff. I'm standing on the deck of my boat in the middle of the Mediterranean. The water is a weather report of deep indigo, an absolute calm. I am holding a 422-page document. It is the Thorn Protocol. It is a plan to open source every luxury perfume formula I have ever designed. I am not the face. I am not the visionary. I am the architect of the atmosphere. Thorn Global now has 4,000 employees. We don't sell aura. We sell integrity. Price $22 per bottle. The profit margin is 18%. The transparency is 100%. If you've watched all 15 parts of The Scent of Ashes, understand the final lesson of the void. The world will always try to build a house of cards and call it a palace. They will try to tell you that the reliable one is just a piece of furniture. Let them believe they own the sky, because when the wind finally blows, and the wind always blows, the only thing left standing is the person who knows how to grind the stone. Arthur Vane is in a state-funded care home in New Jersey. He spends his days mopping the floor. He uses a $5 mop. He wears a gray uniform. He tells the nurses he used to own the city. They don't believe him. I reach into my pocket. I find the $15 mechanical pencil from 1992. The lead is gone. The eraser is hard as a rock. I throw it into the sea. The sound of the water swallowing the plastic is the only symphony I need. My weather report: clear skies. No signal. Pulse 60 beats per minute. I'm Elena Thorne. I am the alchemist of the void. And for the first time in 2 lives, the air is finally silent. January 12, 2010. I am standing in a glass-walled conference room in the Burj Al Arab, Dubai. The air is a weather report of 68.4 degrees, and the scent of $400 per ounce oud and pressurized nitrogen. The humidity is kept at exactly 35% to protect the digital servers humming in the sub-basement. I am wearing a $6,000 bespoke suit made of carbon fiber reinforced silk. It is the color of a moonless night. My pulse is a steady 60 beats per minute. If you're still watching, subscribe. Tell me, when you own the sky? 3 weeks ago, Julian St. Clair invited me to this Unity Summit. Julian is 45 now. He is the CEO of Aura Global. He is the man who bought the debt of the Vane family. He is the man who thinks he can monetize the ghost I created. He sat across from me at a table made of reclaimed mahogany from a sunken 19th century ship. Price? $250,000. He didn't look at the scars on my soul. He looked at the projected market share of Thorn Global's open source line. He said, "Elena, you've played a brilliant game of technical sabotage, but the era of the alchemist is over. The world doesn't want integrity. They want hyper-reality. We're launching Neuroscent. It's a digital frequency that bypasses the nose and stimulates the limbic system directly. Your perfumes are stable furniture, Elena. They're heavy. They're slow. They require actual rose petals. I'm here to buy your Thorn protocol for $2 billion. Not because I want to use it, but because I want to archive it. You are a brilliant relic, a biological ghost, but the world is moving beyond the human variable. By the way, if you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one making the product, or are you the one trying to bypass the reality of labor? The year was 2008. The global financial crisis was a weather report of total systemic failure. While Julian was buying up toxic assets, I was buying the arid land. I spent $120 million on 14,000 acres of soil in northern Africa that everyone said was dead. I spent 5,000 hours studying the drought resistance of ancient vetiver roots. Julian got the $500 million bailout from the French government. Julian got the visionary of the new century cover on Wired. Julian had the ethics committee that he paid in stock options to stay silent. I had a 200-square-foot lab in a shipping container in the middle of a desert. I had a $15 mechanical keyboard that I used to write the soil regeneration algorithms. Julian spoke like he was reading the weather report for a Monday morning in the year 2050. He said, "Elena is a stable piece of legacy code. Neuroscent is the future. A ghost doesn't complain when it's finally laid to rest." Now it is 2010. Julian is about to launch Neuroscent at the Dubai summit. He thinks he has bypassed the rose. He doesn't realize that for 730 days, I have been feeding his limbic algorithms a diet of true randomness. I poisoned his reality. March 15th, 2012. The air in the Thorn Global headquarters is a weather report of 72 degrees and the scent of ozone and drying concrete. We are moving, not to a penthouse, to a 500,000 square foot subterranean facility in the Swiss Alps. The walls are 24 inches of reinforced basalt. Price, $1.2 billion. Subscribe. Tell me, have you ever built a fortress just to protect a single molecule? The golden child of 2012 is a man named Leo Sterling. Leo is 26. He is a Silicon Valley prodigy who believes that scent can be reduced to a binary string. He is the chief aura officer for Julian St. Clair. Leo got the $12 million seed round from his venture capitalist father. Leo got the no-label vicuña wool hoodies that cost $4,200. Leo got the TED Talk where he claimed that nature is a technical debt that we are finally clearing. I got a chronic headache from the blue light of the monitors. I got a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich that I ate while watching the liminal decay of Leo's data. I saw Leo in May 2011 at a tech art summit in Basel. He didn't recognize me. I was wearing a gray lab coat and a medical mask. I was standing at the Thorn Global booth, which was a 10x10 space with a single glass vial of water. Leo was showing the digital rose to the CEO of a major social media platform. The rose was a series of electrodes that promised the scent of first love. Leo said, "Look at the stability. Neuroscent has corrected the biological inconsistency of the human creator. It has removed the Elena Thorn bitterness. It has created pure, objective desire. Desired is for people who can't afford the math. That is a microaggression. He thought my bitterness was a bug in my design. He thought my 20 years of picking jasmine was a biological inconsistency. He didn't look at the water in my glass vial. If he had, he would have seen that every 4.2 seconds, the liquid changed its molecular vibration to match his own heart rate. A biological echo that I had planted in the global water supply of the summit. I stayed silent. I looked at the high-frequency arrogance of his hoodies. I knew that the math he was so proud of was exactly 12 months away from a total systematic collapse. September 12, 2014, the 15-year anniversary of Eclipse. I am sitting in a virtual reality boardroom. I am wearing a headset that cost $15,000. The room is a digital recreation of the 64th floor vein off. Claire and Leo Sterling are there. They are digital avatars. Their skins are smooth, their eyes are perfect. They have no pores. If you're still watching, subscribe. Tell me, is a ghost still a ghost if it lives in a machine? Julian's avatar spoke. His voice was a weather report of digital compression and total certainty. Elena, Thurn Global is down to 12% market share in the traditional luxury sector. Neuroscent is now 82% of the global market. The banks have called your loans. The 4,000 employees you protect are currently receiving offers from our AI staffing division. Just sign the legacy transfer. We'll let you keep the villa in Tuscany. We'll let you keep the 422-page notebook. Just stop pretending that the atom matters in a world of bits. Leo laughed. His avatar's laughter was a 440 hertz synthesized tone. Stability is like furniture, Elena. It's useful for a while, but eventually, it's just in the way of the renovation. You're the furniture. We're the light. The $450,000 mahogany table. I said, furniture is what you sit on when the lights go out? And the lights are about to go out, Julian. I reached into the inventory of my VR interface. I didn't pull out a contract. I pulled out a single file labeled beta-aldehyde 14. The evolution of the molecule that destroyed Sophie's silk gown in 1995. I said, Neuroscent relies on a specific microwave frequency to stimulate the limbic system. A frequency of 4.2 gigahertz. I've been the primary supplier of the scent chips for Aura Global for 3 years. I didn't sell them under my name. I sold them through 14 different shell companies in Shenzhen, and every one of those chips has a hardware lock. A lock that reacts to the scent of a human being who has been lying for 10 years. Packet loss, system failure, total blackout. June 20th, 2016. The fallout of the digital scent scandal was a weather report of total systemic execution. Julian St. Clair's Neuroscent didn't just crash. It caused a limbic feedback loop in 4.2 million users. They didn't smell first love. They smelled ashes. For 14 days, the elite of the world couldn't enter their own homes without vomiting. Their homes smelled of the crematorium scandal from 1995. The history they tried to erase had become their only reality. Julian got the Crimes Against Humanity investigation. Julian got the $12 billion class action lawsuit from the victims. Julian got the permanent ban from every financial exchange in the world. Leo Sterling moved to a rural commune in Oregon. He spent his days digging holes for fence posts. He used a 12 RMB shovel. He told the other members he used to be a god of light. They laughed at him and told him to get back to the soil. The montage of the liquidation. August. Aura Global was officially dissolved. The $1.2 billion server farm in Dubai was seized and turned into a public library. The liquid oxygen garden was drained and filled with real roses. September. Julian's $15,000 silk suits were sold at a police auction for $4.20 because they all smelled of rotting jasmine and burnt hair. I got a quiet flight back to New York. I didn't buy a Ferrari. I bought the Vane building back. I didn't turn it into an office. I turned it into the Thorne Institute for Forensic Chemistry. I hired the 4,000 employees Julian had tried to fire. I gave them $125,000 base salaries and 100% medical coverage for their limbic systems. I visited Arthur Vane in his care home one last time. It was October 12th, 2016, the 17th anniversary of the cliff. He didn't recognize me. He was sitting in his plastic chair staring at a blank wall. I handed him a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich. He took a bite. He smiled. He said, "This tastes like the 90s. I said, "No, Arthur. This tastes like the truth, and the truth is hard to swallow." September 12th, 2018. I am 42 years old. I am standing on the terrace of my villa in Tuscany. The sun is hitting the 500-year-old stone at exactly 30 degrees. The air is a weather report of rosemary salt and absolute silence. The Thorn Protocol is now a global standard. We don't sell aura. We sell legacy. Price, free for those who work the soil. If you've watched all 20 parts of The Scent of Ashes, understand the final lesson of The Alchemist. The world will always try to sell you a face. They will try to tell you that the aura owns the light. But the light is free, and the face is just a thin layer of paint over a structural void. Marcus Vane is a name that no one remembers. Sophie is a grandmother in Ohio who teaches her grandchildren how to grow lavender. She doesn't use synthetic fertilizers. She uses the Thorn method. I find a Ziploc bag with the 500 Ermby Starbucks gift card Marcus gave me in 1996. The plastic is scratched. The magnetic strip is demagnetized. I walk to the fireplace in the villa. I throw it into the flames. The sound of the plastic melting is the only aura I need. My weather report. No signal required. Pulse. 60 beats per minute. I'm Elena Thorne. I am no longer the ghost. I am the one who owns the room, and I am finally, truly,